All right, this is tape number 16, and this tape is about totalitarianism. Now, remember where we are. We're talking about different types of government, and I'm going to be talking about the three types of government that Thomas Hobbes would like. Remember, he thought people were generally bad. So, the first type was authoritarianism, the second type is totalitarianism. Now, let me spell it out for you so you've got it right. The key word, of course, is total. Totalitarianism. And the key thing here is total. In other words, they strive for total control. Okay? So, what is a totalitarian government? Well, there's two ways to tell it. Number one is there's no limit to ruler's authority. No limit to a ruler's authority. And when you think about that, that can be a pretty frightening thing. And number two, the rulers try to regulate all aspects of people's lives. Okay? And by all aspects, I mean all aspects. Okay? If you look at totalitarian regimes in the past, they make sure that you have a job, but it's a job that they assign for you. They often are involved in picking your marital partner, the number of kids you have. Think of China's one-child policy as an example of that. Religious life is controlled too. Basically, every single part of your life would be controlled by a totalitarian government. Okay? Currently, there's only one that exists, and that is in North Korea. There are parts of China that are, and if you look on a map, the part of China that's farthest away from Beijing, the part of China that's partially close to Tibet, and now I'm forgetting where it is, and I apologize for that. We would call it Eastern China, the part that's closest to Tibet, Nepal, the part that's closest to Afghanistan. That is an area that has a lot of Muslims, and the Chinese government is very concerned about Muslim populations. And so they are taking actions. They're acting as a totalitarian government in those parts. And much of the control that they're using in those parts actually comes from a phone. Okay, they're following people in through their phones. They're using a WeChat app that we have talked about in class, and they're using that as a way to monitor people. Okay? In the past, prominent totalitarian governments include Hitler, Adolf Hitler, Nazi Germany, very much a totalitarian government. The Soviet Union, also a totalitarian government. Let's see, what else? China, under Mao Zedong, was a totalitarian government. In fact, I would argue China was a totalitarian government probably till about 8 or 10 years ago. Cambodia, after the Vietnam War was over, Cambodia, a small country next to Vietnam, was basically a totalitarian government too. And you think about it, they try to regulate all aspects of people's lives. Let me just briefly talk about North Korea right now to give you an idea of what a totalitarian government is. It's very simple. In North Korea, if we were in a classroom, I was the professor, you were the students, here's what would happen. For every 5 students, I would have to assume, and you would too, that one of every 5 students is a spy. And they're there to spy not just on me, the professor, but also on the fellow students, your fellow students. And anything that I say or do, or anything that a student says or does that would be incorrect, well, in other words, words, not heaping enough praise on Kim Jong-un, any criticism of the government. All of that's not allowed. So anything I say like that could result in me being arrested. Now, here is what makes a totalitarian government different. What would happen is I would be arrested, but in addition to that, my family would be arrested. And North Korea keeps in the northern part of its country several concentration camps. Think back to the concentration camps of World War II. In those concentration camps, lo and behold, well, there's about 200,000 people, and also the only military in the world that has a unit that is trained in rape. So the standard thing that would happen, I would be arrested, my family would be arrested based on the accusation of a spy. Well, instead of interrogating me, what they would do first is they would bring my wife into a room. I would be held captive, and this military unit would rape her before they would start interrogating me. I would have to watch that rape. Imagine the effect that would have on someone who had to endure that. Okay? And as a consequence, what happens is that people are scared to do anything wrong. You don't want to do anything wrong, and if you do something wrong, the consequences are just horrible. So, that is how Kim Jong-un operates. Kim Jong-un also has set himself up, just like his father, who used to rule North Korea, and his grandfather, who founded North Korea. He sets him up as a divine person. One of the things to know about totalitarian governments is that they control your religious beliefs. Okay? So, they co-opted what North Korea does. It's officially a secular, non-religious country, but Kim Jong-un and his family are considered to be almost gods. Let me give you an example. The official story of North Korea is that Kim Jong-un was born on a mountaintop. And not just any mountaintop, but the highest mountain peak in North Korea. Now, what happened is very simple, according to the North Korean official story, is that his mother was 9 months pregnant. She hiked up to the top of this mountain in North Korea, and of course, it was snowing, so she labored her way up there while she was in labor. And then while she was there, she started to give birth. And as she's giving birth, the snowstorm parts, the clouds part, the sun shines upon her as Kim Jong-un is born, and a dove of peace flies overhead. Okay? That is the story of the birth of Kim Jong-un. And it's the same story that his father told about his own birth. And it's the same story that his grandfather, who founded North Korea, told about his birth. Now, we know it's not true. Kim Jong-un's grandfather was born at a Russian military base. There was no dove of peace flying overhead. It was a snowstorm, but it was at a military base. It wasn't climbing a mountain. And so what they've done is they've built a myth about the family that then provides for an ideology that can be used then by people in the place of religion. Sometimes you might have heard the word fascism. Fascism can be a totalitarian belief. What it is a belief in the fatherland, the motherland, Mother Russia, Father Germany, in which you have an ideology to focus on. And not an ideology like conservative or liberalism or religion, Methodism, Catholicism, Jewish, whatever. Nothing like that. Instead, it's a belief in the country itself and its importance, and the leader being the father of the country or the mother of the country. Okay? So, fascism, which term you probably have heard of, is a form of totalitarianism. Now, let me tell you how far they can go. My sister who lives in Hong Kong, is a public health expert. And she told me the story one day. She was working in public health, and she had to go to a rural village in China. Okay? Little tiny village. This was in the days of the one-child family. What happened was very simple. She gets to the village. In the center of the village is a big scoreboard. And on the scoreboard, because she was curious why it existed, on the scoreboard was the names of all the women in the village who were of childbearing age. Okay? And there was a chart. And the chart tracked the days of the month. So, what happened was very simple. When a woman was fertile, it was right there on the chart for all to see. If she was allowed to have a child, everybody knew it. If she was not allowed to have a child, everybody knew it because it was right there. And the village elders would be very willing to take people, women who were fertile and not allowed to have children, and put them in jail until their period of fertility had passed. Okay, that is a totalitarian regime. That's what a totalitarian society does. It controls you even to that extent. The education is provided for you. The thinking in that education is provided for you. Your job is provided for you. Your marriage partner is provided for you. The number of children you have is told to you. Okay? And if you want to exceed it, well, China was used to giving forced abortions, forced sterilizations. Okay? They wanted to achieve their goals, and you were simply there to participate in them. That is a totalitarian regime. Okay? Not a pleasant place to live, much worse than an authoritarian regime, because in a totalitarian regime, there is total control over your life. All right? Right. Next video, we're going to be talking about monarchy.